Check out Punta Doña TV.
Yeah, so we're here at Global Brixton Jam on Brixton Station Road. Just bumped into Scott Ainslie. We've also been promoting the all-party parliamentary group on African Reparations Day, getting our people in our communities to understand that reparations is the work that we're doing here and how we can draw this in to influence, you know, so-called those in power. And so this is a good part of our, you know, thinking about building a mass base around, you know, what reparations work. But we're talking about reparations in Lambeth. Today is also African Liberation Day. So it's quite a good one that you've come through. It's not going to be an interrogation, but more so we were having a discussion about what is Lambeth Council doing about reparations
Well, I mean, obviously, reparations was never going to get through national government, so we decided to try and adjust our own local community for reparations. And if you can pass it here, then maybe that will pass around the country, and then the government will be in a position not to ignore it. So Lambeth is home to the largest African Caribbean heritage community, so it made sense to do it here. We passed it, and it's passed in Bristol, and we're looking to pass the reparations motions throughout the country in different councils. Yeah. What are they doing? Since we passed it about a year and a bit ago, Lambeth have been trying to remove enslavers from the kind of fabric of Lambeth. You know, like removing street names, removing cultural artifacts and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like, I guess, a top-down situation. I guess you want to build it up from the grassroots, don't you?
Well, the conversation we've been having is, I mean, we've been going around the Glocal African Reparations Forum of London, and 2 in 10 people knew that Lambeth Council had a reparations motion. This was out about, I think, about 60 interviewees. And so concretely, if you ask people about what reparations has been done, nothing. And that's a fact if you think about the lived experience that we're still going through. So reparations, what we mean is by what we're doing for ourselves, and how can we get, you know, so-called authority to get out of the way. Like this jam we've been hoping, which is actually an actual space where there's actual education about our African history, which is one of the things the motion says it will do. Yes. But that's not being done. In fact, Black history is still not being taught actively in school. Our young people are being, you know, taught about a future that's not going to exist. And so instead of having police come down to police our events and spaces, why are we not having, you know, reparations is a land struggle. We need space. Yeah. And, you know, Sonia Winfriend could be talking about, you know, removing the legacy of enslavers, but Mikos or whoever these like big franchises are that are just popping up in Brixton to gentrify the space and clear people off the land are a big part of the problem. So how many more cultural enslavers do we need before we actually get concrete? And until we get that, you know, this talk is really dangerous. Because it's tiring people out of, you know, information that's actually ours.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. You know, stuff. I mean, years ago, I stood in solidarity with the people that were in here that were being chucked out because they couldn't afford the rents, because Network Rail were putting up the rents, and it was in a way, you know, pricing the normal African heritage communities out of the neighbourhood.
So unless we can build an autonomous community here with the support of people that understand that that's what we mean by reparations, it's all talk. And it's dangerous talk, because Mikos is here, you know, all these cultural enslavers are filling our communities. Brixton is being taken away in front of people's eyes. And any reparations motion to lobby centrally that isn't, you know, getting masses of us to understand what our land struggle is through real African education, is irrelevant. And that's the conversation that needs to be understood in terms of the climate emergency and in terms of the reparations motion.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And that's why when I went on the reparations march in 2019, it made total sense to me. You know, people are being robbed of their land, robbed of their lives, all over the African continent, all over. But it's happening here. It's happening on our very doorstep. And when Kofi and Esther were saying that this has got to come from the grassroots up, it's exactly what you're trying to say. I totally agree with you. That's why it has to be
a complete lack of support from the council. And this is an important thing. Is like, are they, you know, if they're not going to come into our communities and see the realities.
Yeah.
And literally, here's one concrete thing: give us a space that's ours, and we can run that for the education that we want. Right now, the Brixton Reparations is coming back under Lambeth Council's ownership. We have been in there in those discussions saying that space should be ours for real education about what's practical and happening.
Well,
and we should be resourced to run that 9 to 5, 5 days a week.
Well, Donatis, who's been a Brixton Cold Harbour councillor, what does he have to say about giving you this space within the
I'm
rec?
glad you said that, because Donatis is completely vacant, will never come to anything, and there's this complete disrespect.
Well, why not? He needs to.
Well, this is a good question.
So how do we? So I guess, how do you keep nudging after we've passed the motion in Lambeth Council? How do you get Lambeth councillors? How do you nudge them to give you what you say you want?
Well, this is what we're out here doing today. And instead of us being able to hold the space, most of the time, I mean, the police started off this morning by cordoning off the area and claiming, trying to press down on us. The last time we were here, they sent officers around just to, scare people away from coming. People are so uncomfortable with police presence.
Yeah.
And so any type of political education space is policed. So if we're not allowed to walk around the streets and wake up our community, or they were trying to tell us we're too noisy, it's not possible to do the work that we need to do.
Yeah.
And what we will have to resort to is no joke. And so if the council wants to take serious, the Brixton community, they need to not push people as far as it's already going.
Yeah. So what you're saying that the council kind of trying to remove enslavers from, or leave and educate, they're saying, some of the cultural stuff that is around the borough. That's not enough. That's kind of top-down solution again, isn't it? What you need is space. I hear that, and I will do everything I can to nudge people like Donatis and people that are in the council, Sonia Winifred, the council, Sonia Winifred, etc., to do that and create that space. Because traders have been priced out of the market here, and as you're saying, education is, you're a very well-educated man, but you feel ill-equipped to kind of have these conversations in your own society. People are being educated, so-called, but not perhaps in the way that they need to be educated about the climate emergency, about reparations, about
I can name 30 people who are educated in our communities. Aunties, uncles, people in the market who are far more educated than any of these councillors.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what type? What really? This is to cut through the noise. It's like, what is, if the council's incapable? Let's think practically about it. Is the council even have the power to free up the resources which are ours?
Yeah, it could give you space, and it's taking ownership back of the Brixton Rec. You should be having space in there to have these community-based meetings, so that people can bring their knowledge and experience, which enriches all of our lives.
I'm glad we moved away to actually understand that the reparations struggle for us is about our sovereignty.
Yes.
And until that's understood, and until the police give us the room to do that, reparations will never be understood, because they're going to move us into a position where we're forced to only, be taking back all of the space that is ours and that we're entitled to as a right. These are our rights as colonised people. So we were talking earlier about, the work that needs to be done around education and the climate emergency and why people are missing it. Why do you think the Greens aren't connecting with our communities?
Well, I think because everyone's more worried about putting food on their tables. But
that's why the Greens aren't connecting with our communities.
Yes, but I guess what I'm saying is we're being robbed. We are being robbed of land, being robbed of our resources, the minerals, the stuff that's damaging. We're being robbed of our education as well. As you say, there's lots of aunties and uncles around here that are skilled in the ways of sustainable living that the West will never be. And it's time to, from the grassroots up, bring that education through to create a far more equal, sustainable society that will hopefully mitigate against some of these disasters, the climate crisis, the cost of living crisis, all the different sort of issues that are affecting us right now and are on people's mind. Do you think that is that going to cut through? Is there another?
Well, I'm wondering if the Greens, you can concretely move the Greens to commit to, you know, even from not door knocking campaigning and all this bit, put the same amount of energy that all of that stuff does into, you know, into actually resourcing that education space, and so we can bring the community behind a concrete, practical movement in the step of, you know, re-greening and transforming our spaces.
I mean, I'll do all I can, but I mean, you know, the Greens are 2 amongst 63 councillors. You know, it's Labour that hold the power. They've got it in lockdown, and the establishment doesn't really like. They've got ways of protecting themselves. So I would suggest that, you know, the community has to leverage. You know, you're not going to get your vote unless you give us our space. But, you know, time and time again, they get re-elected. I'll do all I can to nudge, but that's all I can do. But I mean, you've got some great campaigners here, you know, that could help that. I mean, speak to the MP, you know.
The question I would like to ask in terms of what does African liberation mean to you? How can you fully explain how you can contribute? What does African liberation mean to you? And how can you
Okay.
Yeah. What does African liberation, the African liberation struggle mean to you? In your understanding, or the Greens, or whatever?
Well, when I went on the Liberation March, I spoke to Kofi Mawuli-Klue. I had no idea who he was. We walked for about 2 hours. We talked for about 4 hours after that, and I suddenly realised the connections that had been made. So it is about the kind of resonance of past injustice, the kind of stealing of the minerals of the land, of the people, exploiting them to the extent that they have, and it's the connections historical that are still resonating today in terms of proportionality. You know, more black men will be picked up on the streets. You know, the girl who was strip searched. I mean, this has got to stop. You know, all this kind of institutionalized racism, whether it's conscious or subconscious, it has to end. The abuse has to end. The extractivist exploitation of your country, your minerals, your oils, in all these other countries around the world, and our spaces here in Brixton, has to end.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a really important point. The British government is currently collaborating on, you know, security deals with the Ghanaian government. Now, the Ghanaian government was, we robbed the last election. They have been killing journalists in the streets. Just 2 weeks ago, a young boy in Toronto was killed for protesting. This is the British government's currently, you know, one of the strongest partners in West Africa today. Just now, that government also passed a bill to start building on the Achimota forest, which is one of the big, just outside of Accra, one of the biggest forests. What do you say to the British government and, you know, the Ghanaian government's ongoing exploitation of the land and the displacement of indigenous peoples there, and how we, you know, are the Greens going to stand up to the British government colluding with President Akufo-Addo in Ghana?
No. Their value systems are all wrong. The value systems of this British government, and I would say it's more of an English government. I don't think it's the same. I don't think the Scottish government or the Welsh government, for that, believes the same. So I think we're particularly looking at an English government here that are still buying into this whole kind of this growth, this idea of growth and exploitation and profit maximization. In the short term, there ain't no bloody jobs in a dead planet. So they've got to reassess the value system. They need to read donut economics, and we take care of the people that are most vulnerable whilst living within planetary limits.
That was everything in terms of, like, you know, this is true what the government should do.
Yeah.
But here's something very concrete.
Yeah.
And it's quite important, at least to the Africans back home who might be paying attention, to wonder if there are any MPs in this part of the world who are prepared to call out, actually, this particular very English government and its collusion with a genocidal regime in Ghana, who are destroying the Achimota forest, you know, destroying land, you know, currently mining lithium to serve the global north. Can we call that out? Will, you know, are there Green MPs in this country, like yourself, who will call out President Akufo-Addo and, you know, these British government collusions with false and foreign governments that are robbing and stealing land?
Well, look, I'm no expert, but all I know is that the Green Party of England and Wales has passed a motion to atone and begin a repairing process for all its past colonial activity and current, okay? So, but there are some people within the Labour Party of African heritage communities that have voices far more powerful than the Greens. There's only one Green MP in the British Parliament. You know, there's Bell Rabira Adi, there is David Lammy, who's a shadow foreign secretary. These are the people that need to be calling out these kind of things that are happening and saying enough is enough. It's got to stop. The abuse stops now. You know, and what I do as a local councillor, and what other Greens and what other people on the right side of social justice can do is yes, inform themselves, educate themselves, and stand up in solidarity with people that are suffering and paying with their lives for standing up for what they believe in and standing up for what is right, what is just.
I wonder if there's two other things that maybe that would be really powerful. On one of the banners was our brother Mauser Oliver Barker Gomawo. He's been an activist that's been heavily persecuted by the Ghanaian government, mostly for, you know, advocating for constitutional change, but also in particular just, you know, advocating for justice and community and equality. He was arrested just a few weeks ago. Again, just the typical persecution of an activist by, you know, chasing him around. I think it was a parking ticket, and then they held him illegally for like a number of days. Any messages of support to Oliver Barker in Ghana?
Solidarity with you. I mean, I don't know the facts of the case, but I know that you're a good man, and I know that Esther is a very, very good woman, and I know that Kofi Maoli-Klou is a good man. These are people that I've looked in the eye and I trust. So if you're telling me that that's the case, I believe you. I absolutely believe, and I stand in solidarity with your brother in Ghana.
This is really powerful. Thank you.
That's right.
And again, to the Achimota Forest, a message of saving the Achimota Forest. It will really empower people to
save the bloody forest.
Achimota Forest. Achimota Forest.
Achimota Forest.
Yes, save Achimota Forest.
Save Achimota Forest.
Okay, we'll see if it makes the edit.